out. Um, so I worked at Red Racks today because like I went there and I told them I was like I need to start working as soon as possible because Red Racks is one of those places. It's like a thrift store, and people have told me that they've worked there and they've gotten them to like pay them the same day that they've worked and like get them to hire them the same day that they came in, asking for a job and stuff. So I go up there and I'm talking to them and I'm like, I'm looking for a job and everything. And they're like, oh, great. Yeah, here's the job application. Go ahead and fill it out. I was like, cool. So I fill it out and they're like, you know what? We'll go ahead and do your interview. I'm like, that's great. So we do the interview and they're like, cool. We'll be in touch. And I'm like, okay. So then they call me and they're like, can you come in on Monday? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And they're like, okay, I will do your onboarding and stuff, and then we'll have you start working. Now, typically, places want to do like a background check first, so I didn't know if she knew about that. And I was like, do you want me to bring my ID and stuff in before Monday? Because she called me like on a Friday, um, in case like background checks or anything like that needs to be processed before you can actually put me on the floor. She's like, no, 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 just come in on Monday at 9 o'clock. And I'm like, okay, so that's all I knew. So Monday at 9 o'clock, we're gonna do onboarding. Onboarding takes like an hour, right? And then she's like, and then I'll get you put on the schedule. So, like, how am I supposed to know, like, the same? Is it gonna be Monday? Is it gonna be like, in the future? She's not telling me anything. So I get there, and anyways, in between that time, somebody else called me and they're like, hey, we're gonna be in town on Monday. We want to meet with you. And these people are like, they're way more important than like Red Racks and stuff. They're talking about like careers and stuff. They're talking about like long term solutions for my life. They're talking about me being paid like lots of money and stuff to do like very important work. So obviously they take priority. So I'm like working at Red Racks or whatever, and they're like telling me, hey, we're gonna be there on Monday. So I get there to Red Racks and we do the onboarding and everything. And she's like, okay, great, let's get you on the floor. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I have a meeting today. I'm just not sure what time I'm gonna need to leave for it because they haven't told me what time they're gonna be in town. Like they were like traveling around and stuff, so they really didn't know what time they were gonna be here. And she's like, oh, okay, that's fine. And then so I keep working and stuff. And then they're talking to me and they're like, hey, we're gonna be in town around 1. And I'm like, okay, so um, then they're like, we'll come pick you up. And they're like, we're about 5 minutes away. So I go tell her, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna leave because I have this meeting. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, the meeting I told you about earlier, like I have to go to that. And she's like, well, I told you that um, we're gonna be here until 4. That was another thing, like we had a conversation where I was like, hey, I'm having this meeting and stuff, so like what time do you want me to work until? And she's like, oh, just whenever you want. We're gonna be here until 4. If you wanna stay here till 4, you can. I'm like, okay. So anyways, and they contact me and they're like, it looks like it's gonna be about 1. I'm like, all right. So then they're like, we're 5 minutes away. I'm like, okay. So I go tell her, I'm like, hey, I need to go because I have this meeting. And she's like, what meeting? And I'm like, well, the one I told you about earlier. And I didn't know what time it was going to be yet, but now I know that it's going to be, now basically. And she's like, well, couldn't you just do it after 4? Because I told you you're going to stay here till 4. Like, that's not what she told me. She said if I want to stay till 4, I can. Um, but, anyways, I was just like, so what time do you want me to come back? And she's like, just hung up on the whole, like, oh, well, so you're not staying till 4? And I'm like, no, I'm leaving now. She's like, oh, okay, well, bye. I'm like, okay. So I left, and like, I don't know if I should show up tomorrow at 9 a.m. and be like, hey, do you guys want me to work or not? Because, first of all, she was already giving me shit. She was like, do you have deodorant? And I'm like, actually, no, because I'm completely out of money. This is why I need to be paid, Like, I didn't tell her this part, but I'm just like, actually, no, I took a shower this morning and that's it. And she's like, okay, well, here's some deodorant, blah, blah, blah. So, if I show up tomorrow in the same clothes, still not wearing deodorant after I've pissed her off, you know what I mean? So, I'm kind of debating in my mind, like, do I go back and try to work, or do I just kind of avoid the whole embarrassment, or like, what exactly am I gonna do tomorrow? The Glow Center is closed tomorrow, so I can't go there. That's one thing I want to do is go back to there. And know. You know, I mean, they're gonna have to pay me for my work today. I clocked in, clocked out. Like, I worked from 9 until 1. So 9, 10, 11, 12, 1 to 5 hours, 12, 20 an hour. I mean, I made at least $30, right? So, I don't know. If I had money, I would buy deodorant, but I don't have any, so I'm not really sure what to do about that. But um, another problem is that one door opens at 9, and they would probably want me to be there at 9. So it's like I couldn't go to one door and ask them for deodorant before I go. You know, one door's already closed for today, so can't go today. Um, I don't know. Tisk tisk.